Good morning. We are on to chapter 1. Now, I do want to say that you never know what might happen this week. We may be losing some days, but I want to go ahead and continue with what the original plan was. So, Soldier's Heart, chapter 1. I'm going to go ahead and share screen, and I'm going to read. Remember, if you do not want to follow along and read, hopefully it's big enough that you can see it, you are always more than welcome to go to the blog and click on the PDF on my site, and you can go ahead and read chapter 1 there. So here we go. It's much quicker, and then there'll be questions for you to answer. So chapter 1, June 1861. The war lasted 1861 to 1865, so 4 years. 1860s, 100 years before the civil rights movement in the 1960s. So 1860s. He heard it all, Charlie did. Heard the drums and songs and slogans, and knew that everybody in his rooster was crowing. Sorry, I gotta move this piece. Sorry. There was going to be a shooting war. They were having town meetings and nailing up posters all over Minnesota, and the excitement was so high, Charlie had seen girls faint at the meetings. Just faint from the noise and the hullabaloo. Hullabaloo is one of those cool words. And shooting war, why'd they call it a shooting war? Shooting war because it was the first time that they were all going to line up across the field from each other and shoot at each other. Okay? It was better than a circus, or what he thought a circus must be like. He'd never seen one. He'd never seen anything but Winona, Minnesota, and the river 5 miles each way from town. There would be a shooting war. There were rebels who had violated the law and fired on Fort Sumter, and the only thing they'd respect was steel. It was said, and he knew they were right, and the Union was right. And one other thing they said as well: if a man didn't hurry, he'd miss it. The only shooting war to come in a man's life, and if a man didn't step right along, he'd miss the whole thing. They made it sound so exciting that everyone wanted to be part of it. Charlie didn't figure to miss it. The only problem was that Charlie wasn't right a man yet, at least not to the army. He was 15, and while he worked as a man worked in the fields all of a day and into night, and looked like a man standing tall and just a bit thin with hands so big they covered a stove lid, he didn't make a beard yet, and his voice had only just dropped enough so he could talk with men. If they knew, he thought, if they knew he was but 15, they wouldn't take him at all. But Charlie watched and Charlie listened and Charlie learned. Minnesota was forming a volunteer regiment to go off and fight. It would have near on 1,000 men when it was full. Men from Winona and Taylor's Falls and Mankato, and as far north as Deerwood, and from the capital, St. Paul, as well. 1,000 men, and Charlie had learned one thing about an army. One part of an army didn't always know the business of another part. The 1,000 men in the regiment would be in companies of 80 to 100 men from each section, and it would be hard for a man to know men who weren't from the same area. Charlie couldn't join where they knew him. Somebody would spill the beans and he'd get sent back or used as a runner or a drummer boy. He wasn't any boy. He was going to sign to fight as a man, and he knew a way to do it. They would gather at Fort Snelling up along the Mississippi. All the companies from all the towns would assemble there before they went off to fight. He'd just take him a walk, Charlie would, take a walk by himself until he was at Fort Snelling, and there he would lie about his age and sign up as a man and get him a musket and a uniform and go to see what a war was like. I won't get into any trouble, Ma, he said, wrapping some bread and cold potatoes and half a roast chicken in some tow cotton. Plus, they'll be paying me, I hear they give $11 a month. I'll send most of it on home to you and Orrin. Orrin was his younger brother. You can use the money and I won't be under your feet all the time. You aren't under my feet. She hated it when he talked fast. He always got his way when he talked fast. He'd smile and that cowlick would stand up in the back, and he'd talk fast and she couldn't keep him from what he wanted. He was a good boy, as good as they came. But ever since his father Paul had been kicked to death by a horse gone mad when a swarm of bees landed on it, Charlie only had to smile and talk fast, and he got his way. You haven't ever been under my feet. Same as, he said, shaking his head. I'm always in the way. Best I go off and see what the big fuss is all about. You ain't but a boy. And I've got to be a man sometime. You've said it more than once yourself. Charlie, you said, you got to be a man. Well, here it is, my chance to be a man. A boy wouldn't go off to earn $11 a month and wear a uniform, only a man. So I'm going to be a man and do what a man can do. And he won. She knew he would. And he did. And he took his bread and cold potatoes and chicken and left home, walking down the road for Fort Snelling. And if she had known what was to come of it, if she had known and could tell him what would come of it, she would have fought to drag him back and let the federal government keep their $11 a month. But she also had heard the songs and the slogans and seen the parades, had been to the meetings, and though it was her son Charlie leaving, she did not think it would be so bad. Nobody thought it would be so bad. Nobody thought it could be so bad. And all the officers and politicians and newspapers said it would be a month or two, no longer. It would all be over by fall. Makes me tear up thinking about it. I'm going to stop share here. Makes me tear up thinking about that poor mama seeing her boy go off to the war and not have any idea what was going to happen to him while he was there. Okay, so you can always go back over this. I love you. I miss you guys. And answer the questions. Bye.